So hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, Sue, for joining me today. If you don't mind, maybe share a little information about who you are and what you've recently accomplished in the sector.
Happy to. Hi, Mona. Thanks for having me here. My name is Sue Edworthy. I run Sue Edworthy Arts Planning, which is a marketing, producing, strategic planning agency that I've run for almost 12 years now. And what I do is work with individual clients, small and medium-sized arts organizations to help them improve or extend their marketing reach and assist in them, insist in it sometimes as well to help them figure out what they need to do next in order to improve that marketing reach. As I said, I've had this organization for about 11 years now. Right now, I'm currently working with the Art of Time Ensemble. I'm still doing a bit of work with WorkInCulture, which makes me very happy. The Associated Designers of Canada, and the Alumni Theater, who is a volunteer organization. So I'm pleased with who I'm working with right now.
Wonderful. Well, so you've been working as a marketing professional for various arts and culture organizations for quite some time. What's one thing that amazes you about the sector?
Over 20 years, if you really want to make me say the number out loud, over 20 years. And I think something that has always amazed me about our culture, our industry, and the people who work in it is that any one of them could go and work for Nike. Any one of them could go and sell a shoe, sell a purse, that kind of thing. And they choose not to. They choose to market and sell art. They choose to bring something to hopefully not just people in general who like art, but to people in general who don't maybe know a lot about art. And there's an educational element there too. And I find it so desperately important that we have these such good people who are doing their best to bring art to different people, to give them an understanding and a knowledge and an appreciation of what it is that we're working on at any given time.
Yeah, that's for certain that we do have a lot of wonderful arts workers in the sector who are very dedicated to supporting artists and creatives. And certainly the sector couldn't be the way it is because of the dedicated and very skilled people that we have working as arts administrators or even marketers. So what kinds of marketing challenges do you find most organizations face, given the issues that were raised by the Marketing Masterclass participants and your experience as a consultant in general, working with various arts organizations?
I always say this to every workshop when I begin working with them, and that what I will ask is a show of hands for everyone who is there who has unlimited money to work on their marketing. And then I will ask for a show of hands of people who have unlimited time to work on their on their marketing. And nobody ever raises their hands. Nobody has unlimited time or an unlimited budget. Everyone is under time constraints and budget constraints. And so I think I want them to acknowledge that all of us have this problem. So let's figure out what we're going to do without those things, how we're going to make this work otherwise. Because otherwise you could just spend the entire 3 hours or 3 days or 3 months complaining about how there's no time and no money. We know that. None of us have it. And what I found is that so many people in my workshops get that. They get that there's not enough time, there's not enough money. So what are we going to do other than complain about not having? Okay, what do we have to work with? And that's what amazes me every single time.
So in relation to that, what are some tips and, resources that are available that you think would be helpful for arts and heritage professionals to keep in mind when developing a marketing strategy?
I think the main thing, and we worked on this a great deal during the WorkInCulture Masterclass, was knowing who your audience is, and then dividing that audience up even more. The phrase that's used for that is called buyer persona. Who are the people who are buying your product? And you can't just say, well, this is who should be buying our product. Probably, and the world should be seeing more art. But you have to absolutely determine who you're going to sell this to or market this to. And I think probably more importantly, why they would want it. What are you offering to them? What are your theater tickets? What is your museum exhibition? What is your film festival offering to them? And odds are very good usually that it's not the play or the film or the exhibition itself. You're offering them something bigger, something more personal, and determining what that is a huge factor.
Yes, very good to keep in mind, because I always find that it starts with, learning about what you're offering and what you're putting out there, the messaging, but also who you're doing that for.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really important to be mindful of your target market. So that's great. So Sue, can you maybe talk a little bit about what kinds of Marketing Masterclass resources will be available for people to check out through the e-learning platform? Some things that you've already maybe created for the participants in the program, but will be available for the broader audience.
Oh, sure. We have a lot of, we created a selection of worksheets almost so that at the end of the masterclass, our participants could literally, put a staple in the corner and go, this is our marketing book. This is how we do it. Where everyone had their own work to do for their own organizations. And as well, helping each other out. Can you read my buyer persona? Do you think this is correct? What do you know about my organization other than what I've told you about it? And I think that's a key part of it as well, is the idea that you live in that organization. You know far too much about that organization. You need an outside eye and an outside perspective sometimes to figure out what exactly it is that you are doing or offering, no matter what you think you are offering. So we've got a lot of selections in there. We've got buyer personas, as we've mentioned before, and how to figure out who your buyer personas actually are. We have something called a customer journey, which I think is also very critical because it takes literally the customer from point A, which is, I think I'm going to buy a ticket to X, through the entire journey to them going home and tucking into their bed that night after they've seen the product or project. It allows you to look at every bump in the road. It allows you to figure out how hard or how easy it is to do something. It allows you to see what people have to go through to get to see your work and how you can make it easier or how it might be made harder. We had a joke, I'm a big fan of memes, but the one thing we had up for the customer journey was the Lord of the Rings map of Moria. You don't want this journey for your people. You want to be able to get them there to you as quickly as possible and as easily as possible. That's a big one. Buyer persona is also a big one. And also figuring out what your brand actually is. Brand is a word that gets tossed around a lot these days. And I think one workshop teacher that I had years ago put it so well, as far as I was concerned, is that your brand is the promise you are making to the people, right? And if you break that promise, you break your brand. So figure out what your promise is. And when I say promise, I don't mean your mission statement and I don't mean your mandate. We had a really fantastic, lively class during one of the weeks we were working on the master class, where participants would start explaining beautifully what their promise was and then slowly slide back into their mission or mandate, which is not where we wanted to go for. But yeah, we had a good time figuring out who we were and what we did and how we were going to show it to people.
Wonderful. Yeah. So we'll be looking forward to a lot of those resources. So my last question for you, Sue, given that you've spent a lot of time the past few months working with the participants of the Marketing Masterclass program, and they've have learned a lot through the program. I'm just curious, as the curriculum consultant and facilitator, can you share what you learned from the program or what you learned from the participants?
I think the things that I learned from the participants would be that there's a lot of amazing art in Ontario, out there, so to speak. I'm originally from Kingston, and we had a masterclass occurring in Kingston. And to see things going on in my hometown that I thought were fantastic and should be celebrated. And the idea that we all need to be able to talk to each other and figure out how to do things together, because that was one of the best things I think that we all learned was, how are you going to do this? Well, I thought I'd do this. Well, have you tried doing that? So the things I learned from them is that I didn't expect any less, but there are, as I said, there are some smart, savvy, dedicated marketing people working in the arts and culture sector. And I appreciated every one of them being in my class. Every single person had their own personality, their own idea of how to market their work. And that to me was the most beneficial thing I could have hoped for.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. And we look forward to the resources and learning more about what future programs that you're going to be working on.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Mona. And thanks WorkInCulture for having me. This was a truly wonderful project to be able to work on for a long time capacity, right? Yeah.
For sure. Thanks again, Sue. Take
You're
care.
welcome.